He won't tell you this. Most men can't even explain it themselves, but deep down, every man is searching, not just for beauty, not just for chemistry, but for a woman who awakens something rare and primal in him, loyalty beyond logic, desire without distraction, and a devotion so deep it feels like destiny. If you do these 5 things, not only will he stay, but he'll never even glance at another woman again, because he'll know he's already found what every man secretly dreams of. There's a force within you that, when fully awakened, makes you unforgettable, not just to him, but to his very biology. It's not about chasing, begging, or pleasing. It's about becoming the kind of woman who moves differently, who speaks directly to his masculine soul, not by what she says, but by how she carries herself. These are the 5 unshakable traits that lock a man's loyalty, spiritually, emotionally, physically. A man's heart is not won through surface gestures or temporary pleasures. It's captured when a woman speaks to something deeper than his emotions, his mission. And most women overlook this. They get caught up in emotional validation, in trying to be supportive in a way that centers on comfort, caretaking, or affection alone. But for a man, especially a man of depth, ambition, or vision, what he craves most is a line, not just someone who listens, but someone who sees. Someone who sees where he's going and believes in it before it even becomes real. This doesn't mean abandoning your own dreams or making his path your sole priority. It means recognizing that one of the deepest needs in a masculine soul is the drive toward purpose, and that the woman who helps him clarify, strengthen, and pursue that purpose becomes more than a girlfriend or wife. She becomes his compass. And a man never abandons his compass. So many relationships fall apart not because of a lack of love, but because of a lack of shared vision. Emotional chemistry without directional alignment is like a beautiful car with no gas. You can sit in it, but it won't take you anywhere. When a woman asks a man about his goals, his ambitions, his fears around failure, not to critique, but to understand, something shifts in him. He starts to feel not just seen, but supported in a way that calls him into a higher version of himself. That's rare, that's sacred, and it's magnetic. When you tell a man, I believe in what you're building, and I see the man you're becoming, those words don't just land in his ears, they echo through his bones. Because now he's not building alone, he's building with someone who gets it. Now here's where most women misunderstand. They think speaking to his mission means giving up power, but it's the opposite. A high-value woman doesn't shrink to make room for his path. She elevates the entire journey. She knows who she is. She has her own life, her own vision, her own energy. But she also understands the masculine psyche well enough to know that a man who feels alone in his purpose will eventually burn out or shut down. And when that happens, many men wander, not just physically, but emotionally. They start to seek in other women what they feel is lacking in their own relationship, that sense of inspiration, that belief, that challenge to be greater. But when a man already has a woman beside him who nurtures that mission, challenges him with love, and celebrates his victories like they're her own, he stops needing external validation. He becomes loyal, not just out of love, but out of reverence, because you're no longer just his woman, you're his team. What does this look like in practice? It's asking deeper questions. It's learning his industry, his interests, not because you need to master them, but because curiosity is the ultimate form of respect. It's noticing his small wins, encouraging him when he doubts himself, and reminding him of who he is when the world tries to strip that away. It's also knowing when to be quiet and let him wrestle with his vision, and when to speak truth that grounds him back in it. It's not about praise, it's about presence. And presence, when rooted in respect and belief, becomes irresistible. And let's be honest, this is not something you can fake. Men are biologically and psychologically attuned to authenticity. He'll know if you're only saying what he wants to hear, versus when you truly admire the direction of his life. So before you can speak to his mission, you have to understand what it means to be a woman on mission yourself. You have to be grounded in your identity, your purpose, your own sense of value. Only then can you approach a man's vision without trying to fix it, compete with it, or cling to it? You become a catalyst, not a crutch. This kind of dynamic changes everything. It removes the toxic need for control, jealousy, or insecurity. Because once a man feels that his mission is intertwined with your belief in him, he begins to guard that bond with his life. It becomes a source of strength for him, not a burden. And in a world that constantly asks men to prove themselves, a woman who reminds him of his worth without him needing to earn it every single day is a miracle. He will protect you. He will prioritize you. He will think of you in every major decision he makes, not because you forced your way into his plans, but because you aligned yourself with his soul. There's an old truth that says, behind every great man is a greater woman. But I would say, beside every man who rises is a woman who dared to see his future when it was still invisible. That kind of woman is unforgettable, and that's why when you learn to speak to his mission, not just to his heart, you won't need to worry about other women. Because when a man knows that no one else sees him the way you do, no one else fuels him like you do, and no one else believes in him like you do, his soul becomes loyal long before his body ever makes a choice. And in that sacred bond, the idea of another woman won't just be unappealing, it'll be irrelevant. Men are visual creatures, not just biologically, but psychologically. His eyes are his entry point, the first gateway through which emotion, desire, and even devotion are stirred. But here's what most women don't realize. Visual loyalty doesn't mean being the most beautiful woman in the world. It means becoming the woman whose image, whose essence, whose presence stays etched in his mind no matter who else walks into the room. And this isn't about filters, plastic perfection, or chasing trends. This is about learning how to command a man's visual attention through authenticity, intention, and presence so powerfully that the sight of you becomes his home. Visual loyalty begins with contrast in a world flooded with sameness, where most women follow the same fashion influencers, where the same styles pose the same way and mimic each other's identities. The woman who dares to refine herself, not just decorate herself, becomes magnetic. A man can scroll past 1,000 women online, but if the way you move, the way you dress, the way you enter a room carries a sense of purpose and originality, he will remember you. He will crave that energy again and again, even if he doesn't understand why. And that craving becomes loyalty when it's paired with substance. One of the most misunderstood truths about men is that what captures their attention isn't always what keeps it. Yes, beauty grabs, but beauty without self-awareness quickly fades into the background. The woman who holds his gaze over time is the one who understands how to dress in a way that complements her energy, how to create a sensory imprint through scent, expression, and mood. Heels might accentuate your legs, but it's how you walk in them that tells him who you are. A red dress might catch his eye, but the way you look over your shoulder while wearing it might live in his memory forever. That's not vanity, that's power. And power, when wielded with grace, awakens a man's primal instinct to protect and cherish. Here's where the secret lies. Visual loyalty is about association. A man becomes loyal to what he associates with emotional fulfillment. If every time he looks at you, he feels something, peace, excitement, challenge, desire, his brain begins to tie your image to pleasure, purpose, and presence. This is why emotional tone is so important. If you look beautiful but carry bitterness, he'll grow numb to your presence. But if you cultivate calmness, joy, and radiance, every glance he steals of you becomes a subconscious reminder that you are his safe space and his fire. That's what makes him look at you across a crowded room and feel like he just saw the sunrise. Another key piece is mystery. Not secrecy, not games, but the art of not revealing everything at once. In the early days of attraction, everything is new, but loyalty builds when a man keeps discovering new layers in you, how your style evolves, how you carry yourself differently in different environments, how you express yourself in subtle, unexpected ways. This keeps his eyes, his most primal sense, engaged. And when his eyes are engaged, his desire remains focused. You don't need to show more skin. You need to show more soul, layered behind your expressions, your movement, your stillness, your silence. Because men don't just want to see, they want to watch. And if you give them something to watch, something to discover, something to absorb, they won't need to look elsewhere. You'll become their cinema. And let's talk about energy. It's the invisible glow that changes how a man sees you. Ever seen a woman walk into a room and every head turns, even if she's not conventionally beautiful? That's because her energy precedes her body. Confidence, not arrogance. Softness, not passivity. Awareness, not desperation. When you combine visual presentation with emotional congruence, when your look reflects your soul, a man feels aligned with you. His visual system no longer just says attractive, it says true. And once a man sees truth in a woman's presence, it's nearly impossible to replace. Of course, this also means understanding the visual triggers of your man. Every man is slightly different in what pulls his attention. Some are drawn to elegance, others to boldness, others to simplicity. Ask him, study him. Learn not what makes you look good for the world, but what makes you unforgettable to him. Maybe it's the scent you wear when you sit beside him in silence. Maybe it's the way you fix your hair while you talk about something that lights you up. Maybe it's that one outfit that makes his eyes darken with hunger even after a decade. These are visual anchors. Use them, not manipulatively, but intentionally, because visual loyalty, like emotional connection, is built through consistency, care, and attention to what matters most to him, not what matters to the crowd. There's also one more secret ritual. Human beings bond through repetition. If there's something specific you wear when you're close, something about how you present yourself during your intimate time, something in the rhythm of your presence that becomes familiar, comforting, exciting, he will begin to associate that with home. And home is not where a man visits. Home is where he stays. So no, you don't need to look like a supermodel. You don't need to dress like an Instagram influencer or change your body to keep his attention. What you need is mastery over your own presence. You need to walk with intention, look at him like he matters, and present yourself in a way that honors both your beauty and your depth. That's how you trigger visual loyalty. That's how you make it so that when his eyes wander, they only ever come back to one woman, you. In a world that constantly demands, criticizes, and depletes a man, what he secretly craves, often more than sex, more than admiration, more than even success, is peace. The kind of peace that doesn't just quiet the noise around him, but calms the storms within him. The truth is, most men live in a state of quiet warfare. They wake up carrying the weight of unspoken pressures, perform, provide, protect, achieve, and they are rarely offered a space to rest without judgment. Society tells them to be strong, to be stoic, to keep going, even when everything inside them feels like it's breaking. And while the world sees them as pillars, inside many of them are simply searching for a safe place to lay their emotional weapons down. That place, if you choose to become it, is you. Being a man's peace doesn't mean being passive. It means being powerful in a different way, emotionally grounded, spiritually centered, and calm in your energy. When a man comes home, physically or emotionally, he's not just looking for conversation or routine, he's looking for sanctuary. A woman who can hold space without reacting, who can listen without interrupting, who can be soft without losing herself. This isn't about ignoring your needs or being a doormat. It's about understanding that real feminine power doesn't need to fight for dominance. It simply radiates. And in that radiation, a man feels safe, not because you fix him, but because you allow him to breathe. Men don't always articulate it, but they know exactly how a woman makes them feel in her presence. If you bring chaos, he will subconsciously brace himself every time he sees your name on his phone. But if you bring calm, not silence, not detachment, but true emotional calm, his body will begin to associate you with relief. And relief is addictive. You want to be the place where his soul exhales, where his ego can be quiet, where his wounds aren't poked at, but where healing can begin simply because he's allowed to be. That kind of presence is unforgettable, because every man has women he's laughed with, flirted with, even slept with, but very few have known a woman who made them feel at peace. Peace also comes from trust, not just trusting him, but being trustworthy. Do your words build him or break him? Are you a mirror that reflects his strengths, or a magnifying glass that only focuses on his flaws? Do you speak to him like a child to be corrected, or a king to be empowered? A man who feels emotionally criticized will retreat or rebel, but a man who feels emotionally understood will rise. And when a woman learns to hold tension with grace, when she can express her needs without rage, share her pain without blame, and set boundaries without attacking, she becomes emotionally rare. And emotional rarity in a woman is more attractive than any physical trait, because while beauty can fade and passion can fluctuate, the feeling of being emotionally safe never loses its value. But let's be clear, being his peace isn't about hiding your own emotions. It's about knowing how to process them before weaponizing them. It's about learning to pause before reacting, to breathe before criticizing, to reflect before escalating. A woman who knows how to self-regulate emotionally becomes a lighthouse in a stormy world. And men, even the strongest ones, gravitate to lighthouses, not because they're fragile, but because they're steady, because they shine without shouting, because they guide without pushing. And when a man feels emotionally safe, he opens in ways he didn't even know he could. He becomes more loving, more attentive, more loyal, not because he has to, but because his nervous system feels at rest around you. Think about it. Where does a man go when he's tired, when he's lost, when he's scared? If he doesn't have a woman who offers peace, he turns to distractions, alcohol, work, validation from other women. But when he does have that woman, when he knows he can sit in silence with her and feel whole, when he knows he can break down without being judged, when he knows her presence restores him, he will guard that connection like a sacred treasure, because now she's not just his partner, she's his place. And you don't walk away from the place that saved you. You protect it. You fight for it. You honor it. So ask yourself, what is the emotional climate of your presence? Are you a storm or a shelter? Are you a battlefield or a sanctuary? The woman who becomes a man's peace isn't the one who never challenges him. She's the one who challenges him without creating war. She's the one who can hold a mirror up with compassion, who can call him out with dignity, who can love him even when he's learning how to love himself. And once a man experiences that, every other woman becomes noise. He no longer looks around, because he knows what he has isn't just rare, it's irreplaceable. There's a quiet crisis happening in the hearts of countless men, and most women don't even realize it. It's the ache of being loved but not desired. You see, men are told to be strong, to provide, to protect, and they'll do it. They'll give you everything they have, work themselves to the bone, carry burdens silently. But behind that strength is a deeply human need to feel wanted, to feel craved, to feel like they are not just enough but irresistible to the woman they love. A man can endure a world that drains him, but he cannot thrive in a relationship where he feels invisible emotionally or physically. And this is where so many women unknowingly lose their power. They love him, but they stop desiring him. They appreciate him, but they stop expressing hunger for him. And when that hunger dies, something sacred within him starts to starve. To make a man feel desired is to reach him not just emotionally, but viscerally. It's to touch the part of him that wants to feel chosen, not out of obligation, but out of passion. Not because you need him, but because you want him. And yes, sex is part of that, but it's not the whole picture. Desire is communicated in your glance across the room, in the way your fingers trail across his arm as you pass, in the way you press your body into his on an ordinary afternoon. Not for a reason, but because you can't help yourself. It's in the way you look at him when he's talking about something that lights him up, the way you flirt with him even when no one's watching, the way you still seduce him with your words, your scent, your presence. When a man feels desired by the woman he loves, he walks differently. He breathes differently. He becomes more attentive, more alive, more deeply loyal, not because he's being rewarded, but because he feels seen in the most primal way. Desire affirms a man's masculinity, not by stroking his ego, but by acknowledging his energy. You're saying, I see you, not just as a provider or a helper or a routine, but as a man I want. And this doesn't require grand performances. Often it's the smallest things that hit the deepest. Your breath catching when he takes his shirt off. Your playful teasing when he shaves. Your spontaneous kisses that catch him off guard. These things aren't trivial. They're vital because they tell him over and over again, you still excite me. You still do something to me. And that reminder is fuel. Many relationships suffer not from a lack of love, but from a slow erosion of desire. Over time, life takes over, responsibilities, stress, routines, physical touch becomes transactional, affection becomes predictable. And somewhere in that fog, a man begins to feel like a ghost in his own relationship. You still love him, you still care, but he doesn't feel wanted. And when that happens, he may not cheat, he may not leave, but something within him will quietly begin to detach. He'll stop reaching for you, he'll stop initiating, he'll start wondering if you still see him the way you once did. And even if he never says it out loud, that question will haunt him unless you answer it consistently, not with words, but with energy, presence, and touch. This is not about catering to his ego. This is about restoring the sacred polarity between masculine and feminine. A man in his masculine thrives when he feels magnetized by a woman in her feminine. Not the performative feminine, but the embodied, confident, sensual energy that says, I own my desire and I'm not afraid to let you feel it. When a woman expresses desire without shame, she awakens a fire in a man that no outside fantasy can compete with. He doesn't need porn. He doesn't need validation from strangers. He has a living, breathing goddess beside him who reminds him daily that he's still wanted, still powerful, still hers. And the irony is, the more a man feels desired, the more deeply he desires you. Because masculine desire feeds on feminine invitation. Not pressure, not obligation, but invitation. A look, a touch, a whisper that lingers. These things reignite him, not just physically, but emotionally. They remind him that he's not just going through life with a partner. He's in a living dance with a woman who still sees his fire and fans it daily. So don't underestimate the power of intentional expressed desire. Don't let routine dull the edges of your sensual energy. Don't assume that because he's a man, he doesn't need to feel chosen. He needs it more than he'll ever say. And when you become the woman who doesn't just love him, but wants him, mind, body, and soul, he won't just stay. He'll stay lit up. He'll stay tuned in. And he'll stop seeing the world as a field of options because you've become his only craving. Respect is the oxygen of a man's soul. Without it, he begins to suffocate silently, questioning his worth, second-guessing his instincts, and retreating from the world. And here's the brutal truth. Many men can survive without affection, without attention, even without consistent intimacy, but they cannot survive long-term in an environment where they feel disrespected, especially by the woman they've opened their heart to. Respect isn't just a nice gesture to a man. It's his emotional backbone. It's what gives him the courage to stand tall in a chaotic world, to lead, to act, to become. And when a woman learns to respect her man publicly while privately inspiring his highest self, she becomes the force behind his greatness. He may not always articulate it, but he knows it, and he won't forget it. Public respect is not about blind praise or pretending he's perfect. It's about the way you speak about him when he's not in the room, the way your tone changes when you're talking to friends, family, even strangers. A man listens to the subtle ways his woman references him, Whether she builds him up or tears him down with casual sarcasm, passive digs, or backhanded compliments, these things cut deeper than most women realize. When you mock your man, interrupt him, or dismiss him in front of others, even jokingly, you strip him of something sacred, his dignity in your eyes. And without that, his motivation to protect, to provide, to show up fully, slowly withers. On the flip side, when a man knows that his woman has his back in public, when she uplifts him, defends him, praises him, even in his absence, it builds a level of trust and emotional loyalty that goes beyond passion. It's spiritual. He feels seen, valued, and honored, not just as a partner, but as a man. But respect in public is only one half of the equation. The deeper power comes from how you inspire him in private, not by nagging, controlling, or mothering, but by believing in the man he is becoming, even when he hasn't become him yet. Every man has a silent struggle. Every man has doubts he never speaks out loud, and most men walk through life with a mask of confidence while secretly wondering if they're doing enough, being enough, becoming enough. When a woman can step into that space, not to lecture, but to inspire, she becomes irreplaceable. She becomes the whisper in his soul that says, I see you, I know you, I believe in you, even when you don't. That kind of influence doesn't make a man weaker, it makes him invincible. Inspiration isn't loud. It's not about pushing him to hustle harder or calling out his flaws. It's about how you see him. It's in the way you respond to his vision with curiosity instead of criticism. It's how you hold him accountable with love, not with shame. It's the moments where you gently challenge him to be more, but from a place of reverence, not resentment. When a man feels that his woman respects him in the light and inspires him in the shadows, he begins to expand, not out of pressure, but out of passion. Not because he has to prove himself, but because he wants to grow for the woman who sees him so clearly. There's also a sacred balance here. Public respect creates safety, while private inspiration creates elevation. You protect his image and you cultivate his potential. You stand beside him in front of the world and you gently shape him behind closed doors. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful. Because the greatest influence doesn't come from dominance. It comes from being a mirror that reflects the man he could be and loving him like he's already there. That kind of woman isn't just rare. She becomes the pulse of his purpose, and no man walks away from the source of his strength. But this balance must be genuine. Respect without authenticity is flattery. Inspiration without boundaries is manipulation. The key is to root both in truth and grace. Call out his greatness, but don't worship him. Honor his effort, but hold space for his humanity. Lift him when he's down, but challenge him when he's drifting. This is not about inflating his ego. It's about building his soul. And when you do that consistently, he won't just love you. He'll revere you. He'll cherish you, protect you, and guard your connection with everything he has. Because you've become more than his partner. You've become the reason he becomes more. So never underestimate the power of your words, your tone, your gaze. A single sentence from you can either break his spirit or awaken it. A moment of ridicule can create distance that takes years to repair, while a moment of belief can birth a legacy. If you want a man to stand tall in the world, be the woman who reminds him who he is when the world tries to make him forget. Respect him when eyes are on you. Inspire him when no one else sees. And he'll never want another woman because he knows the woman he has is already his greatest blessing. In the end, the power to keep a man's heart isn't found in manipulation, appearance, or strategy. It's found in embodiment. When you become a woman who sees a man's mission and walks beside it, who knows how to capture his eyes without needing the world's approval, who gives him peace in a world that tears at his soul, who reminds him with every touch that he is still deeply desired, and who balances fierce public respect with quiet, private inspiration. You don't just win him, you elevate him, and in doing so, you elevate yourself. Because the truth is, you can't give this kind of love without becoming the kind of woman who knows her own worth, her own power, and her own light. But there's a final piece to this that matters more than anything else. Love him, but never lose yourself in him. The most magnetic, unforgettable women are not those who chase men, beg for attention, or shapeshift to fit what he wants. They are the ones who are rooted in themselves, grounded, vibrant, emotionally rich. The woman who holds her own frame, who can walk beside a man without disappearing into him, is the one who keeps his respect, his passion, and his devotion for life. Because men may be drawn to beauty, but they stay for energy. And when your energy radiates self-respect, joy, depth, and mystery, he doesn't just love you, he chooses you over and over without ever needing to look elsewhere. So don't ask, how do I keep him? Ask, how do I become the kind of woman whose presence makes him better? Because when you become that woman, when you awaken his purpose, ignite his desire, calm his spirit, and reflect his greatness, he will never want another woman. Not because he can't have one, but because he already has everything he's ever wanted in you.